Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down. This is my guitar. I'm still on a Telecaster this week for our fourth week looking at Hottentot by John Scofield. Unfortunately, the studs that I ordered for the tailpiece on my 335, which broke last week, they came, but they are metric rather than imperial, and there is a difference depending on what year you've got. So my gibbo's out of action still this week, but hopefully it'll be back next week. I've just ordered a whole new tailpiece. Just to complicate matters. So hopefully that will solve the problem, and next week it'll be back in action. If you'd like to support this channel, please like and subscribe, and pop a comment below if you want to ask any questions. If you really like what I'm doing here and you want to support me going further, then Patreon is the place to go to do that. The link is on the screen now, and it's www.patreon.com/extra guitar lessons. Thanks so much to Blake, who joined the Patreon this week, and thanks to all the other patrons who have continued to support me so far. Let's get on with what we're going to look at this week. So in the last two lessons we looked at the previous 32 bars, splitting it up into two 16-bar sections. Today we're going to look at the final 8 bars of the A section. We're still on that chord, B flat 7 sharp 9, and we're still seeing Scofield using all of these tension devices, and we're going to take a look today at how he uses rakes, artificial harmonics, and how he uses those. Really super cool. We're also going to take a look at how he plays arpeggios backwards up the neck, which is pretty cool as well, and also some double stop bends. Most of the stuff this week is technique kind of focused. There's not much kind of harmonic interest stuff. It's mostly pentatonic, what he's using this week, and minor pentatonic at that. But there's some interesting stuff that we can take away from these last 8 bars before we jump into the B section. So I'm splitting this up into 2 4-bar sections. Let's look at the first 4 bars. So Scofield starts off this section with a rake. So we've got that bend from the last 16 bars, and then he rakes across the string, across the strings. Now, if you're new to this technique, a rake technique, it's something that's used quite often in blues. And what it is that you're dragging your pick across the strings, across 2 strings which are muted, sometimes 3, but more often than not it's 2. And then you're hitting a desired note to ring out properly. So Scofield's dragging his pick across the first 2 strings, the E and the B, and then he's hitting the E flat on the 3rd string and bending it to an F. So, and it's super quick. It's something that you're going to want to slow down and gradually speed up to. Here is a close-up. So to practice this, you're going to want to drag your pick slowly across the strings whilst muting the first 2 strings here. So just pop your first finger barred across those 2 strings. Don't press down. Literally just lay your finger down on the string until it mutes. So if you go from a fretted note and then gradually lift off the pressure until you get a muted note. And so you don't want anything to ring out. If you hear little harmonics, it's not going to matter too much, because when you eventually speed it up, you'll be playing it so fast that you won't hear those harmonics anyway. So you might be able to hear a little harmonic. I can certainly hear one as I kind of do it slowly. But don't worry too much about that. Like I said, as you do it fast, you won't hear it. So drag your pick backwards up across the strings. It should be quite relaxed like that, and you'll hear click click. And then get your finger in position to hit that note there, the E flat on fret 8. So don't fret the 8th fret one until you kind of get close to it, just because it might be a bit awkward, and you might end up with the fleshy part of your finger kind of muting it in the wrong place and creating a different sound. So for ease, I would just have your first finger across the 6th fret here, muting those 2 notes. Okay, So that's the first thing he does there. The next thing, which is really super interesting, is artificial harmonics. So he's using these artificial harmonics that will be on the transcription as AH. He's using a pinched harmonic. Artificial harmonics are anything that isn't a natural harmonic. So a natural harmonic is stuff like that. So an artificial harmonic can be a pinched harmonic, or it can be a tapped harmonic. So here we're using a pinched harmonic. So the technique for executing a pinched harmonic is basically you have your pick, and then you have the flesh of the thumb is also hitting the string at the same time or momentarily afterwards, and that's creating that node point, that harmonic. So there's lots and lots of nodes, as I've said before, between the bridge and the neck. So you can hear them all there. And what you want to do is you want to retract the pick slightly back into between your thumb and first finger, tilt the pick ever so slightly, and then as you hit the string, you're going to want to hit it with a little bit of force, but kind of move inwards towards the pickup as you do it. You might want a little bit more gain on your amp in order to bring out that harmonic and accentuate it. But you should still be able to hear it even slightly when you're playing clean. So in the last video we saw where he was using artificial harmonics to climb the scale. So he was doing that. Here he's actually exploiting the nodes. So the nodes, as I said, are the points along here where you can get the harmonics, and depending, on the, where you've closed the length of the string here, between here and here, there are node points all along where you can get harmonics, and it's all to do with the division of the string length here. I don't know the exact divisions, but the interesting thing that we've got here is that Scofield's using two node points along the string, one that's got a higher pitch and one that's got a slightly lower pitch, to create like a melody. And I think that's really cool, and it's something that we can use. Don't worry too much about creating the exact same node pitches that he's using. It's going to be quite difficult to do that, but just try and find one that's slightly higher, and then move forwards towards the pickup, so you can hear that. You can hear the difference between the two node points there, and just try that in your solo. I think it's such a cool little technique that he's used. So here's a little exercise for finding the node points on a pentatonic scale. So basically we're running up a B flat minor pentatonic scale, and what we're doing is we're 24 frets theoretically. I know that we run out of frets here on the guitar, but we're theoretically 24 frets above the fretted note, and that's where we're going to try and find the node point. So as we go through, we're going to outline the shape of the scale from position 1 in this right hand here as we find the node points. It's going to take a little bit of time. It might be a little bit tricky, and it's one of those things that you're going to need a little bit of gain for. I've upped the gain on my Kemper in order to be able to bring those harmonics out. So try upping the gain on your amp or on your pedal that you're using at home in order to bring those harmonics out. But here's an exercise for trying to find those particular node points for the minor pentatonic scale. So for the remainder of these 4 bars, Scofield is using minor pentatonic vocabulary, and then he does something which is cool up here. So up here, this kind of demonstrates his usage of the B flat minor pentatonic scale starting on an F note. So this is quite cool. And I think if you start your scale from anything other than the B flat note, the tonic note, I think you're more likely to get a bit more inspiration for some different lines. So when you're practicing your scales, try starting your B flat minor pentatonic from the D flat or from the F when you're starting your lines, because I just think it brings out something quite different. The other thing to note as well is that he does a really cool pull off from F to D flat, from the 5th to the flat 3rd of the chord B flat minor there, and I think it's really useful if we know our B flat minor arpeggio along the string. So here's an exercise for that. I think, again, this stops us playing in box shapes, going vertically. It makes us think more laterally along the neck. So I think it's really important that you guys learn that. So let's take a look at the next 4 bars, the last 4 bars of the A section. So Scofield jumps up an octave, up to position 1, but up here on the 18th fret, position on the 18th fret. And he's hitting some double stops, so double stop bends. He hits one here where he's basically got the flat 7, so the A flat, and then he's also got the blue note that he's catching as well. I'm not sure whether he did it intentionally, but it sounds super cool and it's a great technique to learn. He's catching the E, which is the blue note, underneath, so he's got them both at the same time. And it sounds a little bit dissonant, but that's the idea. So it's worth practicing these particular things. Here's an exercise for finding some cool double stop bends. I've done it down here, down an octave, to make it slightly more easier for you. And they're in various places on the position 1 shape. So make sure you learn those and try and get them into your playing to get a bit more of that kind of aggressive and really intense kind of sound. So as I said, Scofield uses this one with the flat 7 and the blue note. And then he also uses one which is slightly unorthodox in blues. The ones that I put in that exercise just now are the most common ones. And this one here that he uses is with the flat 7 and the flat 3rd, so the A flat and the D flat, and he's bending them down like that. And I think that sounds really cool. It sounds really out there. So I included that in the little exercise a minute ago. But try that, adding that into a normal blues as well as something that is similar to what we're looking at here. Again, just thinking outside the box like Scofield, it really does create something different, and it's quite exciting as a player as well. So the technique for actually executing these bends is slightly similar to the way that you would execute a normal single note bend. You've got push bends and pull bends. So a push bend would be for the top 3 strings, and that would be using these 2 notes here, or these 2 notes, or as we saw Scofield using those 2 notes as well, and bending and pushing upwards, or like that. So with that, as you're doing that, you're going to be angling your wrist outwards as you do it. Thumb over the top as much as you can to support the bend. And then with the one that is here, because it includes this slightly heavier gauge string, the 4th string, you're going to want to be doing a push bend, which is pushing down towards the floor, like that. And your wrist is going to be angling in ever so slightly. So the remainder of it, he's down here on these bottom strings. I always love it when he goes down to these bottom 2 strings here. He's got such a light touch when he's playing that sometimes the note kind of fails, and he's using these 2 notes here. It's really super funky, and he does this super cool thing where he lets off the grip on the last one, and you get this kind of buzzy sound like that as he kind of slides down into the 17th fret. And it's kind of one of his little things that you hear quite a lot on his records. I think it's super cool as well. I mean, I'm a massive fan of his tone anyway, and his general style. But I think this is one of the things that I love to practice and love to play in my own solos, is this kind of thing where the note kind of just fails and sounds like he's kind of played a bum note or something, but he's kind of doing it intentionally. So the one thing that I think is really cool here that he does is he's got an arpeggio, a B flat minor arpeggio, and the way that this is structured is if you play it the opposite way that Scofield played it, then it's actually going up in pitch, so B flat, D flat, F, but it's going backwards along the frets. And I think this is a really cool thing, and it's a good way to get us to think outside the box. And so I've put an exercise together where you play the B flat minor pentatonic scale going backwards along the fret. I've put it an octave down because it's slightly easier to learn stuff and navigate around the fretboard when we're down this area of the guitar rather than all the way at the dusty end. So try this and see if you can get some backwards lines that are pentatonic into your playing. So the final thing is, I said I would talk a little bit about tone and how to get a decent Scofield tone when you're using a single coil setup on a guitar. So that would be a Stratocaster or a Telecaster like this, a standard. Scofield has started to use single coils more recently, so there is actually a really cool video on YouTube of him playing with Robin Ford using a Stratocaster, and it still sounds like him, but he's using Telecasters an awful lot more. There was a story where he said in an interview that his original guitar that he bought in the 60s, a 1966 Telecaster, and he sold it when he was in high school. The guy he sold it to got back in touch and said that he had the guitar. And I think that's really cool. I think that might be why he's using a Telecaster. It might have a little bit of nostalgia to him. But you can still sound like Scofield even with it. So one of the things that you might be trying to do when you've got a single coil is to try and get that hollow body kind of sound that he has out of his AS200, which is the 335 shaped guitar that he uses most often, that he's famous for. Now, I think you're not going to get the exact hollow body tone, but you can get more of a rounded and thicker tone out of the bridge pickup on a Telecaster by altering the EQ. Now you'll see on his board, I've just put a picture up here, that on his EQ pedal, on his Boss EQ pedal, he's actually taking out all of the low end. And that's when he's using his AS200. So if you pop that back up, if you've got one of those pedals, or if you've got an EQ setting on a Kemper or on a Helix, if you pop that particular frequency back further up and do the opposite of what he's got on there, you're going to be getting slightly more to the sound that he's got. Again, you won't get that exact hollow body tone. That's to do with the tone that comes out of the guitar naturally. The other things you can do if you don't have a Helix or a Kemper or an EQ pedal, if you've got just a standard combo amp, then what you can do is I'm showing a picture now of my my Kemper settings. You can boost the mids, boost the low frequencies, which is the bass, and also roll back and cut off some of the high frequencies. And this is how I got that more kind of mellow kind of sound out of the bridge pickup. So I'm still getting the attack that you would get off of a bridge pickup, partly due to the fact that I'm playing near the bridge, but I'm also getting that kind of thicker tone. It's not so nasal, it's not so squeaky and squealy as you would normally get with a bridge pickup with lots and lots of treble on top. So if you do that on your amp, if you've got a mid setting and a low frequency of bass and a high frequency of treble setting on your amp, then try using these particular tones. I am using a Mesa Lone Star channel 2 setting on my Kemper, which is from M-Brit. So again, it might not sound exactly like your amp, but it's going to go some way to creating a sound similar to it. The last thing is to roll the tone back on your guitar. So if I've got one tone pot on here, but essentially you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to want to roll off the top and boost the lows a little bit more, so boost the bass a little bit more. If you've got a single one, then just roll it back a little bit. You can also experiment with sometimes rolling the volume off a touch on the guitar, creates a little bit more of a mellow sound. And in terms of gain, again, you can see I haven't got very much gain on here. A lot of it is just coming out of how aggressively I pick the string. So hopefully that stuff there helps you in terms of the tone for getting that if you've got a single coil. As I said, it's not going to sound exactly the same, but it will go some way to getting that kind of mellow tone that you do get out of a hollow body, but also having the attack. So yeah, try that stuff at home, see how you get on with it. I think the takeaways from today, for today's lesson, I think the first one is to practice your rakes, and the second one is to practice your artificial harmonic node points along here and see if you can create some interesting melodies using those node points, just like Scofield did. The third one is to practice your double stop bends, your push bends and your pull bends. And I think the final thing is taking those arpeggios or scales and playing them backwards along the fretboard, but up in pitch. which sounds a bit counterintuitive, but it does go some way to kind of getting you out of a certain mindset that always going up the fretboard equals going up in pitch. And I think you can get a certain different sound out of your scale, a different texture out of your scale by going backwards along the fretboard but up in pitch. So I think thinking outside the box again, this helps us to be a little bit more creative with our playing. So try those things, and also try the tone advice if you've got a single coil. So apart from that, have a great week. Have a great time practicing. I hope all this has been useful to you. If you want to support me, then please like and subscribe, and pop any comments with any questions below. And if you really want to support me, then Patreon is the place to go to do that. The link is on the screen now, patreon.com/Exeter Guitar Lessons. So have a great week, have a good practice time, and I'll see you next week for the B section. Bye.